Hey, and welcome back for another look at the X-Files. Today we're going to be checking out The List, episode 5 of season 3. Debuting October 20th, 1995 on the Fox network, The List takes our agents to a prison where inmates and guards are being killed off one by an executed man who claimed he would come back to enact his revenge. Prisoner Napoleon Nietzsche Manley is on death row for being an accomplice to murder. He took part in a botched robbery in 1984, but never actually killed anyone. His partner was the one who actually committed the murders, and Nietzsche was just the getaway driver. His time is up though, and all that awaits him is the sweet embrace of the electric chair.
I ain't ever gonna love another man. You hear me?
A lot of people say this, but I hope she means it, because it may bite her on the ass later on. His wife holds hope that maybe the governor will make a call and save him, but we're talking about Florida here. Nietzsche sits down in what will be the final chair he's ever going to sit in, and I can't help but wonder just what must be going on inside his head. The warden arrives and asks him if he has any last words, to which Nietzsche says he will be reborn, he will return, and 5 men will die.
Mark my words, 5 men will die. 5 men will go down.
You know what? You just made the list!
Following his execution, Mulder and Scully are called on the case, and you might be wondering why. What case? The man was just executed. Nietzsche had faced the electric chair twice in the past, as he was granted last-minute stays by the governor, but like Scully says, 3rd time's the charm. Leading up to his execution, Nietzsche told everyone he would be reborn, and when he did, would take vengeance on 5 men. And that's when the body of one of the prison guards was found in Nietzsche's cell.
Yesterday, a death row guard was found dead inside the cell that Manley had occupied those 11 years. His death cannot be explained.
Dun, 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 dun.
The guard was suffocated, most likely from a pillow, but how does a guard die in an empty cell? The warden in no way thinks Nietzsche has returned from the dead to enact revenge, but it's most likely that he was working with someone that would take care of his list. The warden is very good at throwing his voice though, because he can speak and move his lips completely out of sync.
In fact, if he'd stayed outside, I would have figured him for a Nobel Prize. But he made a mistake. Paid for it with his life.
The warden takes the agents to the body that was found in Nietzsche's cell. Then for some reason, we focus in real close on this guard. I'm sure he's going to be very important to the story.
It's the guard.
Oh shit, I guess not. They arrive where the body is, and Scully notices something really strange. This guy just died and he's already maggot food. Well, that, and it looks like the body still has a pulse. Mulder speaks with a man named John Speranza, who Nietzsche had spoken to about his upcoming reincarnation. He's pretty damn convinced that Nietzsche has returned, and he will continue to kill until his revenge is complete. Scully asks the guard, who I spoiled doesn't have long to live, if she can see the cell where the body was found. And I get a really strong Silence of the Lambs vibes here as Scully walks by the prisoners. I mean, this has to be intentional, right? Scully, should you be touching evidence with your bare hands? The guard goes back to see how Mulder and Speranza are getting along when Scully decides she's going to take a little tour of the prison showers. She was already getting side-eye from the prisoners, so I don't know why she thinks it's a good idea to wander around on her own. I know she's a little spitfire and can handle things, but she is 5'3", and I guarantee most of these guys have close to 100 pounds on her.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
See what I was talking about? Now luckily for her, the man Vincent Parmelli is one of the guards, so she wasn't going to be harmed. But he has information for her. He knows who has the list of potential victims, a prisoner by the name of Roque. Before she gets any more information, the guard returns asking her what she was doing, because this place is nowhere for a woman to be off alone. The entire experience seems to have gotten to her as well, because she just wants to get the fuck out of there. It's a good thing she does though, because it looks like the guards' heads are just falling off.
I guess they haven't recovered the body yet, so it's going to be difficult to establish an exact cause of death.
Hard to establish an exact cause of death? I think losing your head would count as a cause of death. The strange thing with this death is it already had maggots, just like the previous one. While Scully has fun with a little head, Mulder questions Dave Chappelle about what he knows about this list. Roque claims he heard Nietzsche telling Speranza about the list, but before he spills the beans, he wants to work out a little deal.
I want to transfer out of this hole.
Why? You on the list?
Unless he gets his deal, he's not saying a word, and the other men will all die. But I'm gonna press X for doubt because I don't think this guy knows anything. The warden isn't in the deal-making business, however, even if it means 3 more men die. He's not about to give in to any prisoner, even though so far it's his own men that have been dying, so fuck them, I guess. Now everybody relax, don't go losing your heads. It's just the missing body of the headless guard. Nietzsche seemed to be quite the reader, obsessing over books and religions that spoke of reincarnation. Hopefully he chose a better body to inhabit than a 7-year-old girl though.
Imagine if you could come back and take out 5 people who had caused you to suffer. Who would they be?
I only get 5?
I remembered your birthday this year, didn't I, Scully?
And this is why I love her. I hope Mulder knows how to fight. The agents decide to speak to Nietzsche's wife, hoping that maybe they can get some more insight into the man. Nietzsche never feared death because he knew he would come back. And he wasn't alone in this thought either, because his wife also believes that he has. Back at the prison, and Roque is going to have a little one-on-one meeting with the warden. I'm not sure why the meeting place is in the creepy showers.
Who's on the list?
The warden is terrified because he fears his name is on the list. But sure, beat a guy when he's chained up like a coward. I saw how in shape he was. He probably would have dummied you if he wasn't chained up. The agents are then called and informed that there's suddenly been another death. And it was Roque. Wow, I did not see that one coming.
Excuse me, is this Sarcasm 101?
Ooh, Nietzsche's wife is gonna have some explaining to do because it looks like she's been hooking up with Parmelli. What happened to that "I'll never love another man"? She's worried because she thinks someone may find out about them and it could get back to Nietzsche. You know, Nietzsche who's dead.
As far as I'm concerned, anyone who had contact with Nietzsche Manley is a suspect.
Mulder isn't exactly buying that Roque was number 3 on the list. He thinks the next victim may be the executioner that flipped the switch. The warden is very hesitant in giving that information out because it's supposed to be confidential, but unless he does, this mystery man may be the next one to wind up dead. He does end up giving the agents the information, but when they get to his house, it looks as if there hasn't been anyone home in quite some time. Well, unless you count this person doing paperwork in this other room here. Scully finds something rather unsettling when she finds maggots on the floor, which appear to be coming from upstairs. Looks like they were a little too late because the man is already dead. What's funny is they don't react to the smell until they're standing over him, but I guarantee depending on how long he had been dead and decomposing, they probably would have noticed the smell as soon as they walked through that front door. Mulder speaks with Speranza again because he wants to know the last 2 names on the list, but Speranza won't say a thing. The only thing he tells Mulder is that Roque's name was not on it.
I've just been going over Nietzsche's phone calls over the last 2 months. Over 30 of them were made to a man named Danny Cherez.
Scully found something interesting. Nietzsche's been making a lot of calls to a man named Cherez, and since the first murder, for some reason, he's been to the prison 3 times to see Speranza. So she thinks Speranza is working with him on the outside. The agents speak with Cherez, and the reason why he's been to the prison is because he thinks he can help Speranza's case. He was Nietzsche's defense lawyer back when he was first sent to prison, and the craziest part out of all of this is this guy is supposed to be 37 years old. He thinks because he failed to keep Nietzsche out of prison to begin with, that he's the next one on the list. He's doing everything he can to save his own ass, even speaking to Nietzsche's wife.
Anyway, I got run out of there by her crazy boyfriend.
She has a boyfriend?
Works at the prison, waving a freaking gun in my face.
At the prison, the warden wants to make a little deal with Speranza. If he can call off whoever is doing these killings, the warden will make sure his case gets reopened, and maybe the governor can step in before he gets sent to the chair. Cherez, meanwhile, can't stand the heat, literally because his air conditioner isn't working. But if it's so hot, I don't know, maybe take the button-up shirt and dress pants off? Parmelli returns back to Nietzsche's place, and he really did not waste any time in moving in, did he? Danielle is starting to freak out now because the FBI are now watching her place because Parmelli acted like a lunatic waving his gun in front of a lawyer. So the cat's out of the bag now. The agents meet with the warden and tell him what they know. Scully even talks about how she was cornered in the shower and that Parmelli may have a connection to Nietzsche. She thinks he's the one killing everyone, including Roque, completely unaware that it was the warden's doing.
What attorney?
A man named Cherez.
Cherez was found suffocated to death, and poor naive Scully thinks he was the 5th victim. So because everyone thinks Parmelli is the one committing these murders, it's time for an arrest. Danielle awakes in her room to see Nietzsche just giving her the death glare. She finds Parmelli and pulls a gun on him because she believes he is Nietzsche and that he's there to kill her. At this same time, the police and the agents arrive to arrest Parmelli.
She's got a gun on Parmelli. Center room, facing away.
On account.
They're too late, however, as Danielle shoots before Nietzsche can kill her, or what she suspects was Nietzsche anyways. Meanwhile, Speranza gets pulled from his cell and sent to the shower just like Roque. And because the warden thinks he's had something to do with all of this, which he hasn't, he suffers the same fate Roque did.
Laying it all on Parmelli.
I thought we already went through this.
It doesn't bother you that he was only on duty for one of the guards' murders, or that he wasn't among the 3 men that knew the name of Nietzsche's executioner?
Mulder doesn't think Parmelli was the one responsible, although it's quite convenient that the warden just so happens to drive right by them. Nietzsche grabs the warden and the steering wheel, causing him to crash into a nearby tree and finally checking off the last name on his list. The List is a decent episode. It's not one of my favorites, but I enjoy it well enough. I won't lie, but I often find it to be kinda confusing at times, because there are so many characters, and I often lose track of who is who. It's also one of the few episodes where they don't solve the case. By the end, Nietzsche completes the list, and that's that. No one gets arrested or exposed, the monster isn't defeated, and there really isn't anyone to root for. Everyone, for the most part, is pretty unlikable. The List currently has a 7.1 on IMDb. For me, a 6 or a 7 sounds about right. Most critics found the episode to be middling for the most part. Reviews ranged from mixed to slightly positive. It was written and directed by Chris Carter and is only the second episode so far that he's directed, the first being Dwayne Barry from season 2. The set for the death row prison was built in only 10 days. It was so costly, however, that it almost put them over budget. In the long run, its construction was actually helpful because they were able to reuse the set for a couple other episodes, Teso dos Bichos and Talitha Kumi. The set was also used for other film and TV productions that were also filming in the Vancouver area at the time. I have no idea if they charged the other productions to use it, but if I went out of pocket to build it, then I sure as hell would have. Usually in horror films, they use mealworms as a stand-in for maggots, but for whatever reason, the producers decided to just use the actual thing. Gillian wasn't really happy with this decision and would go on to say that they were incredibly difficult to work with. You know what they say, never work with children or animals. For one reason or another, the first victim in the show shown on the slab and covered with the maggots couldn't be a prop dummy. Maybe they ran over budget and couldn't afford to make one, who knows. So instead they had to use an actual actor, then pour maggots all over him. This would have been complete nightmare fuel for me. This episode has a rather large cast when compared to the other episodes, and I think this was largely due in part because there were so many victims throughout. Roque was played by Bokeem Woodbine. Bokeem began acting in a CBS after-school special called Love Off Limits. From there, he would appear in films like Dead Presidents and Spider-Man Homecoming as Shocker. In 2015, he would be nominated for an Emmy for his role in the television show Fargo. Speranza was played by John Toles-Bay. He hasn't had a very big career, but played some small roles in various shows and films. His most memorable role may be of Mr. Pizzacoli in Dude, Where's My Car? The warden was played by the late J.T. Walsh. JT got his start in theater with plays like Chicago and would have his first minor film role in Eddie Macon's Run. He was often cast as villains and was fired from the film Loose Cannons 2 days into shooting after Dan Aykroyd found out that he had played a role in the film Wired, a movie that basically mocked the life and death of one of his best friends, John Belushi. His last role would be in the Kurt Russell film Breakdown, and on February 27, 1998, he would pass away at the age of 54. Badja DeJola played Napoleon Nietzsche Manley. Badja is another actor with not a lot of credits to his name, but he got his big break with the 1979 film Penitentiary, which would lead to him getting a role in the Wes Craven film The Serpent and the Rainbow. He would have a few more small roles over the years, but would pass away on January 8, 2005 due to a heart attack. Ken Foree played the role of Vincent Parmelli. Ken is easily the actor I am most familiar with, and I think he is criminally underrated. The first thing I ever saw him in besides The X-Files, and what I think is his best role, is Peter from the 1978 George Romero zombie classic, Dawn of the Dead. He even says the film's most iconic line that I think even people that have never seen the film know.
Granddad was a priest in Trinidad. He used to tell us, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Ken has made a career out of acting in the horror genre. He appeared in the fantastic and very weird From Beyond, and the only half-decent film Rob Zombie has ever made, The Devil's Rejects. Ken's acting career has slowed down over the years, but you can still usually find him in the horror convention circuit. The List is a decent episode. It's very mid X-Files, but watchable nonetheless. Next up, I try not to get cancelled as Mulder and Scully track down a serial killer who likes to target larger ladies and consume their fat in the episode Too Shy. So what do you think of The List? Is it a yay or a nay? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and as always, stay spooky.
A condemned man leaves nothing behind but a list,
Brian,
with a promise to return.
The man was obsessed with reincarnation.
Being obsessed with it doesn't mean you can do it.
And seek his revenge.
Who do you think killed him?
I don't know. I just know who's on the list.